If you want to have that freedom, you do have to have other things aligned in order to make it work.
Correct. Yes. Yeah. I tell a lot of parents, you either need to be an entrepreneur or work from home. There's a lot of work from home jobs now, or have some system where if there's two parents, one parent is doing the homeschooling, the other one is working outside of the home. There's so many different ways to try to make it work.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Our daughter's 7 now, but just before COVID, we started looking at Montessori schools.
Okay.
She's about 2.5. And so we're looking at Montessori school, we're looking at Friend school. And then we decided, let's wait a little bit until she's a little older. So if anything happens at school, she's old enough to be able to communicate and tell her side of, whatever story. And then COVID hit.
Yep.
And then during that time, we just kind of did a little bit more research and decided that we would actually be better off homeschooling.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah.
And, I noticed that there is, on one hand, this kind of a luxury to be able to homeschool because there are, like for parents who don't have at-home jobs and have to be out in the workforce. Some parents have to send their kids to school.
Yeah.
And I think there's an interesting thing when you think about just the history of school and how the classroom was created.
Right.
The classroom being really a daycare, if you will, for parents who, you have these kids, you drop them off at school so you can go work for somebody and have this, have somebody else taking care of your kids and indoctrinating them from such a young age.
Right.
And hope that the schedules align, because we were talking about this earlier and how even the schedule, when you drop off a child to school, it hardly ever aligns with the parents' work. In other words, it's a 7 to 3 and jobs are 9 to 5. So you have that space. It's a lot of juggling when you have to go into these traditional schools. How big of a jump did homeschooling grow before and after COVID? You seem to be an example of someone who was in the middle of COVID and said, you know what, that is probably going to be for us. And the numbers, I understand, did go up quite a bit.
Oh, yeah. It was a large increase of African-American families that started homeschooling during and after COVID. I think what happened was a lot of Black families realized that they could do this, because we were kind of forced into it. I've personally been homeschooling I'm going into my 17th year. But a lot of families realized during that time that they could do this. And so a lot of them, even after the pandemic was over, they continued to homeschool.
How do you homeschool exactly in terms of the process? If you take them out of school, or let's say they were never in school, do you have to tell anybody?
Yes.
Okay. Or does it depend upon the state you're in?
Let's say, for example, some states will require by the time the child is 6, you have to notify the Department of Education. So once they turn 6, for example, Florida, where we started homeschooling, Florida has a rule that once the child turns 6, you have to notify the Department of Education. And then they will go in the system and say, okay, this kid is homeschooled. And then if whatever requirements that particular state requires, you have to really follow those steps.
At this particular age, they should be able to know how to do A, B, C, and D, right?
Some states, not all states, like for example, where we live now, Montana, they could care less. That can be good and bad.
Sure.
Because I've met parents where the children are, 8, 9 years old and can't read. Because out there, agricultural life is life. Farming is life. So they don't put a lot of emphasis on education. So each state is different. There are some states that have a lot of rules and regulations, and then there are states like Montana that only require you to turn in attendance.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Attendance is the only thing we turn in Montana.
So it's really up to the parent.
It's up to the parent to make sure their child is educated.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Yo, thank you for tuning in to Not All Hood. You have no idea how much of a treat this is for us. So please like, comment, subscribe. Just join the conversation. We appreciate you.
You know what I find interesting is the fact that, and I didn't know this, if you're homeschooled, and this makes sense though, you still get to participate in the sports. And that's where a lot of socialization happens. But I know you also have to kind of curate your child's socialization process. But sports has always been a big part of that. And I would imagine that your children are in it. And I'm wondering, how do you curate their experiences in terms of their own culture? And then also, we need to know about other cultures too in order to understand it, live it, not be shocked by it. And how do you situate where they get those learning experiences?
Absolutely. Great questions. First of all, I always tell parents that you are a facilitator. You do not have to be a teacher to homeschool your kids, but you facilitate. That's the key word. You facilitate their learning, meaning you create that learning environment. So, as you just stated, most states will allow homeschoolers to still play sports. My oldest daughter was a star basketball player for our local high school. She was the basketball, she was very good in it, and she was good in track. So she won a medal on the state level. She was the captain of the basketball team. She, did all the sports with the school as a homeschooler. Most states will have rules that say that homeschool kids can still come in and do the band, like, play instruments. They can still participate in the extracurricular activities. Then it's up to the parent to facilitate everything else. And what we love to do is world schooling. So this year, for example, not only are we taking a trip to DC, we're going to be meeting Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. I've arranged for that. We're going to do a tour of the Capitol, and then we're going to go to the African American Museum in DC.
That's going to be a spirited visit for sure.
Well, on top of that, we're going to Thailand this year.
Really?
So we're already doing our unit studies at home on Thailand, the culture, the people. And so we are facilitating that through world schooling. We call it world schooling. But, and over the years, we had an RV, and we would just put the kids in the RV. We go to all the national parks. We've pretty much been to almost every state. We got 2 states left in the country.
Wow.
But we've been to every state. We go into national parks. There's so much history and science all around us on the road. So road schooling and all of those things. And when we go road schooling, I go to the library. The library is your friend if you're a homeschooling parent.
Yes.
You get that library card. Go to the library. We check out a ton of books. So we plan it out. If we know we're traveling across the nation, what states are we visiting? We check out all of those books, and we're learning on the road.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When we did, I think, our last round of NA recordings on 2 of the days. So my wife does most of the teaching. I'm the TA.
Okay.